On behalf of the trustees and the staff of the Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj Vastu Sangrahalaya, I welcome you all warmly to the fourth keynote lecture of the Ancient Sculptures India, Egypt, Assyria, Greece, and Rome exhibition. The exhibition opened in December 2023, and we have had numerous lectures over the course of the year. Mr. Neil McGregor, Professor Mary Beard, and Dr. Jyotindra Jain have delivered keynote lectures as part of the exhibition, and I am delighted that Mr. Mukherjee, Director General of the CSMVS, is delivering the concluding lecture today. Mr. Mukherjee, of course, needs no introduction. Each one of us here, I think, shares a very special relationship with him. He has been a colleague, a mentor, a leader, a teacher, and a friend. Yet here we finally have an opportunity to celebrate and share his accomplishments with all of you. Since assuming leadership in 2007, Mr. Mukherjee has spearheaded extensive modernization efforts at the CSMVS, including the refurbishment of the museum's heritage building. His visionary initiatives earned the museum the prestigious UNESCO Asia-Pacific Heritage Award for Cultural Heritage Conservation in 2010 and again in 2022. He has curated numerous art exhibitions and international museum shows, authored and supervised publications, and launched conservation projects, exchange programs, and archival projects in collaboration with some of the leading museums worldwide. His recent publication, The Lost Stupa of Kahujodaro, an attempt at reconstruction, has been widely acclaimed. A frequent lecturer and active member of various professional committees, he is particularly regarded for his involvement with the Bezo Group and the UK Arts and Humanities Research Council. He is a fellow of the Nehru Trust and the Salzburg Global Seminar. His contributions have been recognized with numerous accolades, including the Bombay Management Association's Special Jury Mention Award for his outstanding work in preserving Indian culture and enhancing the museum's prestige. The Rotary Club of Mumbai honored him with the Citizen of Mumbai Award for his exemplary contributions to the cultural sector. The University of Edinburgh, UK awarded Mr. Mukherjee an honorary doctorate for his transformative impact on CSMVS, making it a vibrant and engaged cultural hub in Mumbai. His work at CSMVS has earned him a coveted election as an international honorary member of the American Academy of Arts and Sciences in 2022. Additionally, he has received the prestigious Marwa Ratna Award from the Mehrangarh Museum Trust, Jodhpur, for his significant contributions to conservation, restoration, museology, design, and traditional art. It is an absolute honor for us to have Mr. Mukherjee present his lecture today, Ancient World Gallery Project, Building a Broader Network of Communication.
Good evening. I'm grateful to each and everyone for your love, affection, and encouragement. Regarding this publication, I would like to say a few things. I expected Vaidehi to say that it's a part of our policy. Any exhibition or any research publication museum is publishing, it should be in 3 languages: English, Hindi, and Marathi. It is unfortunate we could not manage both Marathi and Hindi at the time of inauguration, Ancient Sculptures exhibition. But the desire was there that before it ends, we have to complete these two publications. And I appreciate the efforts of one of our trustees, Mrs. Madhvi Kamath, and our director, Manisha Nene. Both of them came to me and said, we will do the Marathi translation, don't worry. And it should be out before the exhibition ends. And our senior curator, Bandana ji, she came and she said, I will do the Hindi translation. Only thing I can say, if you read, you will enjoy the way they did the translation job. That is why I love Mumbai. I love people of Mumbai. And our next exhibition in our new gallery, Mumbai Gallery, we are going to dedicate to the people of Mumbai. I want to thank our wonderful trustees. Usually I don't, Usually I don't. And that's not correct. And today, the concluding part of our academic events, it's important for all of you to know and understand, because they are not visible. All the time we are visible, but nothing can be achieved in this museum without their help and support. And they constantly support, they constantly encourage, provoke us time to time. So because of them, many good things started happening. And today's presentation, building a broader network of communication, is one of the provocations, which I am going to share with you. The next slide. I cannot begin my presentation without these two people. The former chairman, Mr. Eknath Shirsagar, and our mentor, our guru, Professor B.N. Goswami. The Ancient World Gallery project, with both of them, I was constantly in touch with them. Mr. Shirsagar was my inspiration. For anything and everything, he said, go ahead and do it. I know that you can do it. If you need any signature, come to me and ratify it in the next meeting. That was his answer. Get it ratified in the next meeting. Come and take signature. And weekly basis, he used to phone and review the progress of Ancient World Gallery project. And for your information, this international project started during pandemic in 2020. We started talking to people, friends, and then this idea came up in our minds. We had started, addressing ancient world, acknowledging our ancestors, their contribution, with the India and the World exhibition in 2017. So we thought we continue Ancient World series. And this is important for people to know and understand the relevance of ancient world in today's world. So we dedicate this presentation to our beloved former late chairman, Sri Eknath Shirsagar, a noted chartered accountant, and late Professor B.N. Goswami, a distinguished scholar and a well-wisher of the museum. He had agreed to deliver the third keynote address. I was in touch with him, and he said, I will deliver the third, not the second Mukherjee. Unfortunately, we lost him. And then the third lecture was delivered by Professor Jyotindra Jain. And I conclude the year-long academic programs today. The finale of our Ancient World Sculptures exhibition will be at the Jamshed Bhabha Auditorium on 29 September 2024 at 6 p.m. onwards. We thank Kalaghoda Association and NCPA for organizing the event. Now we move to the third slide. And this is something, I say very often. If you want to understand museum, first you understand the meaning of museum. What is the meaning of museum? And that is very important that you need to understand. So here is something, the definition of museum. We have got it from the International Council of Museums, ICOM. And this is something, accepted by all museum professionals all over the world. But what is important for us to know and understand the character of a museum? What is the character of a museum? If you read the second line highlighted, researches, collects, conserves, interprets, and exhibits tangible and intangible heritage. Now the question, do we really do the research? Do we collect antiquities and art objects? Do we conserve, do we preserve our heritage? How do we interpret? What is the language? What do you mean by tangible? What is intangible? All these questions we need to understand and we need to answer. And then it says, open to the public, accessible, and inclusive. Museums foster diversity and sustainability. Are we accessible? Or accessible to one particular section, not the other sections? These are the questions. Are we inclusive? What about our communication? And this is something I have learned from one of my friends, that communication has to be inclusive. Somebody with some difficulty trying to convey something to you, you have to understand his or her difficulty. It's not that you demonstrate your intellectual capacity in front of that person. You need to understand his and her difficulties. That is inclusive. And that is something I have learned for the first time, that inclusive communication, and that makes another person comfortable. Do we do that? That is the question. Communicate ethically, professionally, with the participation of communities. Communities play a very important role in the development of the museum. Are they involved? Who owns the museum? Who owns collection? So these are the questions. And what is the purpose of a museum? The purpose of a museum is education, enjoyment, reflection, and knowledge sharing. Do we remember? That is the question. In most of the cases, I have some survey reports which I don't want to discuss in details. Only thing I say that most of the cultural institutes in the country today spend 90 to 95% of their total budget on establishment. And hardly, 2 to 3%, and sometimes, you see 1% or below 1% on objective of the institution. And that was the challenge before us. I was going through some of our past budget papers, and there was a time we have spent 90%, more than 90% on establishment. But I'm very happy to share with you that this year, museum has spent 61.5% on education, culture, conservation, research, and publication. And that is expected. That is expected for any museum to do that. So, communicate ethically is a question. While doing research on history of this museum, I realized few things. It appeared in all, documents, archival papers. Museum from the day one, when museum was conceived by the Citizens' Council under the leadership of Sir Firoz Shah Mehta, these 4 things were embedded: humanism, naturalism, internationalism, and idealism. And this is something we adopted today. It's not that we adopted. we made it compulsory for our staff that they should reflect in your work, in your writing, in your exhibition, in everything. And that is so important for any institution. As you know, the concept of museum is changing every day with the changing society. Traditional cultural institutions were created in different times for different audiences than the one they now have to serve. While in the past, mapping, collecting, and preserving cultural goods was of major importance, today cultural institutions are required to connect with society and represent the people they serve. That's very important. Represent the people they serve. This implies that museums are social learning spaces for knowledge-producing processes. One may raise a question, what does it mean? According to us, museum as an educational institution in the contemporary digital society create constructive contribution for social and cultural development. The CSMVS Museum believes in its core philosophy, what I said, I don't want to repeat. It interacts with local community, involves children, young people, and elderly. It also creates a common cultural space for people of diverse background who can come and look at themselves and their roots, their history, memories, and future. One of my friends, I know her for many years, Professor Lundgaard, Danish museum specialist, writes in her diary, I quote, "The development of the society depends on the diversity of the population composition. Museums therefore need to make sure there is a representative section of the population in their user groups and staff composition in order to reflect and react social developments," unquote. The diversity should reflect even in staff composition. And I'm very proud to share with you that today, our staff composition, if you look at, extremely cosmopolitan. You will find, representation from all geographical locations from the country. The act of using museums is a social activity space and the atmosphere as a setting for differentiated learning opportunities play a decisive role in public's use of museum. In fact, the cultural atmosphere contributes to the development of potential for social learning spaces and knowledge-producing places. Can we see the next slide? Let us understand the many roles of museum in our ever-changing contemporary society. Repository of art and antiquity, preservation and promotion of cultural heritage, a center for art and culture, an archive of memories, a center for learning, custodians of culture, an academic institution, an open space for conversation, and a civic space for communities. But usually, when we look at museums, we say repository of art and antiquities. अरे वो तो गोडाउन है, उधर सब पुराना चीज़ें रखा जाता है. That is the perception outside. उधर पुराना चीज़ें रखा जाता है, वो तो गोडाउन है. कलकत्ता म्यूजियम अभी भी they call it जादूगर. So that's the perception. You can't change the perception. If you get down at Howrah station and ask taxi driver, I want to go to Indian Museum, he will just look at your face. He will not understand. But the moment you say, Jadughar jana hai, he will take you to Indian Museum. So these are, these are the characters and how museum is changing with the time. And we want all the elements in our approaches, in our working. So art and antiquity is also important. Preservation, extremely important. And this is a center for art and culture, archive of memories, learning, academic institution. So all these characters are important and they should be embedded in your philosophy. Next slide. We are aware that museums and other cultural institutions play only a small part in the complex process in promoting integration and respectful coexistence of different communities and cultural practices. But we also believe that this contribution has an extraordinary potential to challenge prejudice and stereotypes, as well as to create shared spaces and sense of belonging. So there are questions, how do we go beyond being a multicultural society to become an intercultural society? I don't want to get into current politics, but this is a question we need to raise, that how do we go beyond a multicultural society? Multicultural society is all right, but how do we become an intercultural society? How can museums initiate conversation among different communities where people of different faiths respect each other's culture and art forms? Now let me explain intercultural dialogue. What do you mean by intercultural? Intercultural dialogue is ultimately a conversation between individuals, communities, religions engaging in a relationship with each other for understanding the essence of common cultural ethos, and museums propagate it through their exhibitions and various educational programs. The common thread connecting all the activities initiated by the education department of the CSMVS has been a desire to rethink the role of contemporary museums. Its starting point is the present, from which it explores the past and imagines the future, guided by the needs and expectations of its actual potential visitors, staff, broader communities, and stakeholders. Intercultural dialogue empowers people and society at large to evolve with time and help them to define who they are as people, their biodiversity, monuments and associated relics, behavior and attitudes of the worlds in which they are living, and the way they think and look at and learn and communicate. India and the world is very important for all of us. The path-breaking exhibition India and the World, which was held in 2017, was an experiment for this intercultural dialogue. The first of its kind outside of the United States, United Kingdom, and European borders, where a sincere effort was made to provide a model for museums to share their collection with people across genders, religions, and borders. Next. In this remarkable exhibition, the objects in conversations were designed to speak not only to each other, but to visitors at large, providing an opportunity for discourse and cross-cultural encounters. This whole experience was described by a visitor in the visitor's book. I quote, "Exquisite curation, equally impressive research process, the effort to state this timely message about not simply understanding the past in order to reconsider our present and future, but acknowledging how chronology, time and space are wonderfully complicated. The more we see and look and give into our curiosity that is unknown, what is uncomfortable, this is the idea," unquote. Many a times we underestimate our visitors, but we learn a lot from our visitors. When we read their remarks, we feel that sometimes we feel that they could not understand our language. Sometimes we feel, oh my God, they understood what we wanted to convey. So that is the way, you assess the impact. And I will talk more about the present exhibition later, then you will understand. The conversations in the exhibition were arranged chronologically, but it must be emphasized here that the exhibition did not attempt to be a complete narrative history of India. Nor could it cover every world culture in each spotlight moment. World cultures did have limited representation in terms of number of objects, but the focused nature of the show meant that each object had major impact. So these are, some of the programs, activities we had designed during India and the World exhibition as part of intercultural dialogue. And this subject, intercultural dialogue, I remember we had discussed for 2 days, Mr. Neil McGregor, our dear friend, and Maruk Tarapur. We had a brainstorming session. What do you mean by intercultural dialogue? How do you bring intercultural dialogue in exhibition? What is that you want to convey? So there was a discussion, and the whole exhibition was presented in the same way, the way we wanted. The program was designed the way we wanted. It was a huge success, and people responded. During 3 months stay in Mumbai, exhibition had attracted over 300,000 visitors. Unbelievable. Next slide. The major issue in an exhibition, I mean all exhibitions, is the language. Perhaps the greatest communication problem we confront in Indian museums is the question of how to deal with multilinguistic society. Exhibitions are not simply installations of objects. They are a medium of expression and communication, a means through which we curators can communicate in a non-verbal way. Our research into the social, political, cultural significance of the objects which we wish to share with our visitors. Now the question, how do we communicate with each other? And what do we communicate? That's a big question. What do we communicate? Perhaps the greatest communication problem, that is, I said that we confront in our country. If we go to the next slide, then you will understand. Language-related issues. India speaks 700 languages and over 2,500 dialects. What do? You tell us. We deprive people. There's somebody coming from Gujarat, you just ignore. Can we do that? We are talking about accessibility, inclusive communication, or somebody coming from Chhattisgarh, Uttarakhand. How can we ignore them? How can we deprive them? So these are the issues, museums started thinking today. In past, it was only English. I remember distinctly when I joined this museum as an intern, it was 110% colonial. It was English and Hindi. And English, English was given a different status. English on top, Hindi below. And today, when you look at our exhibition, interpretation levels, a new shift. You see Marathi on top, English below. And I used to ask all the time, why, Hindi below and English on top? Can't we keep it, Marathi on top of English? What is the problem if we do that? But finally we did it. The kind of publication we started addressing 3 languages, major languages, that anything we do in 3 languages. But we have to see that we do it at the end. Our guidebook is also available in 3 languages. Our audio guide is available in 8 languages because we included 4 foreign languages, 4 Indian and 4 foreign languages. So we are changing with the time. We are addressing this issue that how do we address people from different geographical locations? How do we build a broader network of communication, not pan-India, but across the world? So here is something, I wanted to share with you. Expanding network of communication. We already started Museum on Wheels. If you cannot come to the museum can come to your doorstep. Trunk Museum, if our big bus cannot enter into the village, but the smaller vehicle can enter and can carry, trunks, 4 or 5 trunks, and share with you. Trunk contains exhibits, information. They put up the tent and share with people, and it's doing very well. The Trunk Museum is doing very well. It's so busy. Every day, it's traveling. Metro Museum, this is something, we have not yet given up, that museum should have a satellite museum. We have to have satellite museum. So we have submitted our, proposal to the government, to the university. Dr. Manjari Kamath is helping, pushing us like anything. And we are hoping against hope that tomorrow we will have some space somewhere. University program, for the first time in the history of museum could involve 23 universities in its education program. 23 out of 25, we had invited 25 universities, but 23 responded and they came, they attended 5 days program. And after the university faculty program, we had students program. Connecting the world through research and ideas. We have done at least, half a dozen research and publication with different institutes all over the world. With the British Museum, now our conservation department, they are again, doing conservation-related research with the British Museum. Courtauld Institute, they were our partner. Dresden Museum already published. We are also working with the British Library. Now Rydberg Museum has become our partner, and we are jointly working. So things started happening in different countries, working together, sharing research, sharing knowledge. Partnership program, we are going to discuss global co-curation, research collaboration, exchange of knowledge, innovation networks, staff exchange, training, etc. Museum as creative lab, highlighting creativity and innovation of the past, present, and future. Research and development, interactive forums, temporary exhibitions, special projects, gallery becomes a classroom. This is a new idea, that gallery becomes a classroom. And we are grateful to Marina. She comes with kids every day. And our natural history gallery turns into a classroom. 10 to 1 o'clock, if you visit, you see that you are entering into the classroom. So slowly, gradually, things started happening in a right direction. Next. The CSMVS Ancient World Sculpture Exhibition is a unique international and educational initiative. It aims to bring great works of art from other cultures to Mumbai, witness to a shared human history in order to deepen and enrich the study of world history in Indian schools and universities. The present exhibition is the result of the ideas and efforts of several people. It is a unique project created as a partnership between 4 institutions, CSMVS, the J. Paul Getty, the British Museum, and for the first time, State Museum Berlin participated in our project, along with Indian museums, National Museum Delhi, Bihar Museum Patna, Directorate of Archaeology, Archives and Museums, Government of Madhya Pradesh, to showcase some of the finest examples of works of art from the ancient world. The core idea behind this project was to understand India's position in the ancient world. It is a fact that India was in contact with West Asia about 3,000 years ago, and later with the cultures of Egypt, Greece, and Rome. As trade developed, people across the region engaged with each other, exchanging commodity, knowledge, skills, and most importantly, ideas. Next. We see this exhibition, another experiment, as a unique and important educational endeavor. I was talking about the user who all are our users. Our users are students, pre-primary level to university level, researchers, institutions, urban, semi-urban, and rural. And here is the figure we are sharing with you percentage-wise. You'll be very happy to see 40%. 40% constitute students, 20% urban visitors, 15% semi-urban visitors, 7% rural visitors, 10% international visitors, 3% persons with disabilities, and 5% underprivileged. That's a mistake. Underprivileged population. And now the challenge before us that how we increase that underprivileged. So we want to see that next year it shows that 10%, and that's the challenge before us. Some of our curators, they feel that the students' percentage has to touch 50%. And that is something we are really struggling on. In particular, when this exhibition was conceptualized, we thought about our people. In particular, the high percentage of India's young people, 65% of total Indian population constitute the age group between 25 to 35 years, who might never have the opportunity to travel and experience the art and culture of other parts of the world. That if we don't bring world cultures at your doorstep, many of them will be deprived. Everyone cannot fly to London or Berlin to see or witness those masterpieces. Then what do? You ignore them? Being a cultural institute, we can't do that. How do we change our society? How do we integrate? We are talking about intercultural dialogue. How do we initiate intercultural dialogue? So that was the whole idea, that we bring these world cultures at your doorstep, so they get the opportunity to see others, the other cultures, and appreciate. Next slide. Providing our Indian audiences with new ways of viewing their own cultures as a result of seeing it in relation to other society and geographies. It is intended that this project has not just local, but national and international outreach. Then it might introduce new ways of approaching information and knowledge that has the potential of being introduced into our own schools and university curriculum. The public programming, multi-city outreach initiative, university programs, and the museum's extended education services are designed in a way that large numbers of young adults visit the exhibition and live with a new understanding, not only of Indian history in the context of the ancient world, but also of their own proud place within it as citizens of the world. And I'm sharing the way we planned this program. If you see, museum education program, addressing school education program, conducting teachers training, simultaneously students program for students also. Teachers also we need to enlighten. We have a responsibility. And that is something we realized when we started interacting with faculty in different universities. They said, they admitted, Mr. Mukherjee, we have very little knowledge about the Greek art. We really don't know Roman art. Forget, Assyrian. We heard about, but we don't know. Museum extension services, Museum on Wheels, Trunk Museum, Metro Museum program, organizing program in different cities. Gallery program, gallery as a teaching room. Oral history project, our archive department, they are very active. Continuously they are interviewing people. They come for an hour, and the department, they record. Then public program, lectures, workshops, international seminars, stakeholders meeting, academic program. This is something we added very recently as part of ancient sculpture exhibition. University program, postgraduate diploma program, that is our program. We are affiliated to the University of Mumbai. We have 20 students. University faculty program for faculty, 5 days international program. As I said, 23 universities participated in our program. And then there is a separate program for university students program. According to Vaidehi, 8 university students participated. And the whole intention that they come to Mumbai. And we supported. We supported each one of them, that you come and see this exhibition with your eyes. It's not the digital experience. You come and you see the original sculptures, original objects. And they came, and I remember distinctly, the whole rotunda became a classroom. So the international experts, Indian experts, they are explaining each and every attribute, social history, cultural history, political history, all that, we heard for the first time. Research program we started a couple of years ago. We have senior fellowship program, scholarship program. And few years ago, we had started Southeast Asia Initiative, inviting experts from Southeast Asia. Every year, somebody from Southeast Asia, some expert coming and delivering lecture at the museum. So one of the objectives of this Ancient World Gallery project is also to re-energize curiosity for the study of ancient world, prompting young India to avail museums as fertile resources for this inquiry. So museum becomes a resource center. And this phenomena, Neil MacGregor, he describes in his introduction, looking at the exhibition, education program, planning, designing. I quote, "The sculptures that are currently gathered in the rotunda in the CSMVS museum come from many different cultures and tell many different stories, but they come together with one common purpose. The aim to allow visitors, special students, not just to admire and enjoy great works of art, but to think afresh about the complex links between Indian and the rest of the world over more than 3,000 years, unquote." Next.
This exhibition is an experiment, I suppose. It's a new way of museums interacting.
This is the first real example of what you can call global co-curation.
It's a new concept.
This is important not only for India, for the world. The impact will be everywhere.
The togetherness of it, the sharing of collections, sharing of expertise. It's a learning experience from start to finish.
There's been something completely new. This is different.
It's coming together beautifully. A complete transformation. This museum works miracles. What makes this project exceptional is that it's the first time that a project has evolved, an East-West project, with India being asked to shape the narrative.
Our interest was to understand India's position in the ancient world. What was happening in India and what was happening around India, and how India connected with the rest of the world. That was our inquiry.
The curators of CSMVS were asked initially, what do you think your Indian audience would want to see to understand ancient Western culture?
We thought that the best way to do that was to showcase sculptures, and all the sculptures in the exhibition happen to be sacred sculptures. They really carry the entire histories of their regions within them.
And then they had to begin the question of, so what do we say about these objects? And that's where it became very new and very pioneering.
As we set the Ancient World project, many ancient ideas revolving around subjects such as kingship, state, war, religion, literature, society, creativity, and innovation prompted us to ask three important questions. What is the relevance of the ancient world to our world today, and more particularly to contemporary India? Next. How do we initiate a new conversation between the ancient and contemporary world that might help us to create a better world? Next. We don't think everything was perfect in ancient world. Then how we analyze imperfectness of past to judge the present? Next. So this is, global co-curation. It was not curated by one person. It was curated by almost 10 curators. And out of 10 curators, for the first time, 5 of our curators participated for the first time. 2 curators from the British Museum, 2 from the Berlin State Museum, and 1 from the J. Paul Getty. So somebody asked me, Mr. Mukherjee, how did you manage, 10 curators? It's very tough, So we said, yes, it was quite fun. And they worked together. They shared knowledge, experience, learned from each other, and the outcome is here. And this was, our experiment, first experiment probably in South Asia. I never ever heard that any museum in India involved other curators from the world. And it was quite successful. You could see our curators, sharing platform with the international experts. So this is a huge achievement, and I'm very proud of my team. They did very well. Next. So again, the language was the problem, that how do we address? And then finally we decided the 3 languages we have to address: English, Hindi, and Marathi. And 3 publications that in 3 languages. And we are happy that today, we could launch Marathi and Hindi publication. So today, if you go, you see that interpretation in 3 languages. Next, see the reaction. And for the first time, I share with you, museum asked visitors that you can write in your mother tongue. This is India, this is Bharat. You can write, you have every right to write in your mother tongue. And this is the outcome. Otherwise, that India and the world we forgot. Everyone, even somebody with difficulty written in broken English, but in English. It has become a fashion that everything, you have to write in English. But give them little space. Just ask them to write, ask them to express in your own mother tongue. So people started writing and see the variety. This is the diversity. We talk about diversity. This is the diversity. And this time, all 3 visitors' book filled with this kind of. People started writing, expressing their appreciation, criticism, everything in their own languages. This is India. Next. See, the curiosity, in their eyes. The museum education program provides an opportunity for people from diverse countries and cultures to become partners in the world narrative and motivate them to reclaim and reposition their identities in the changing cultural landscape of the world. World belongs to us. And that is what I said in one of the Bizot meetings, that world does not belong to US and UK and Russia. World belongs to us. And we have a role to play. So the identities, we talk about, each one of us can carry 3 or 4 identities. What is the problem? I am from the eastern part of India. My identity is Bengali. I speak Bengali language, that I am a Bengali. I am very proud of my regional identity. I am in Maharashtra. I respect Maharashtrian culture. I am also a Maharashtrian. I am in India. I respect India. India is my country. That is my identity. I am an Indian. But I am also a part of global community. And there is nothing wrong carrying 4 identities. So that was, my argument, reposition, that we need to reposition and claim our identities in the changing cultural landscape of the world. Here we are sharing some of the programs organized by the museum education department in different schools, some, in collaboration with NGOs. Next. See the Museum on Wheels. When Museum on Wheels reaches small town, town turns into Mela. And you will be surprised, forget, small towns, villages. Even in our suburbs, you will not find any cultural institute. Only malls. So how do you spend your time, weekends? Visiting malls. This is what's happening. And our urban planner, they don't allocate space for cultural institutes. They allocate space for malls. And when, Museum on Wheels carry museum, and you see the reaction. And they say that it's not only the schools. When people come to know, they all come. So there is a hunger. There is a huge cultural hunger. And we really don't know how to feed them. Next. Just look at their eyes. Next. For the first time, in collaboration with the University of Mumbai, we had organized our program at the Convocation Hall. Thanks to Dr. Manjari Kamath, her initiative bringing university and museum together. We are grateful to the Vice Chancellor. And he expressed his desire to do many things with the university, with the museum. Next. So here is a list of universities participated in our university program, university faculty program. Starting from Kashmir to Kanyakumari, you will find representation. And they want to learn. They are looking for some good institution. And they came and they admitted that there are many things we didn't know, but we learned. And this 5 days visit to CSMVS, attending workshop, interacting with international experts and Indian experts was an enriching experience. That is the way they described. So studying the history of the ancient world allows us to understand where we have come from and why we are here. And by exploring deeply these questions, we developed a huge respect for our ancestors and past. We are forgetting our ancestors, what they created for us. We don't acknowledge, unfortunately. knowing about how they dealt with multiple social, cultural, political, economic, and even climate-related issues. Such critical questions can surely help us recognize and be prepared to dealing with many of our contemporary issues and possibly even with problems in the very uncertain future that our own world faces today. Next. So in the next video, just go. Some of the activities, academic activities. This is important. Neil MacGregor, Maruk Tarapur. When we started the dialogue, James Kuno, he was the president, a good friend of this museum. During pandemic, he was phoning me and inquiring about the museum, hope everything is all right. And I said, no, nothing is all right. We are suffering like anything. He said, we are helping US museums, but we are unable to help other museums outside US. But if you have any great idea you share with us, we can think about. So this great idea was ancient sculpture exhibition and creating a little space for the Ancient World Gallery, which is coming up now. If everything goes well, the Ancient World Gallery will be inaugurated in December 2025. And then Neil and Maruk, they joined, and we used to talk practically every day. And they actually gave the shape to this exhibition and spent hours with our curators because they came from different backgrounds. And this thing, I had shared with them that, you have to train them, you have to spend time. And they started visiting museums, spending hours with our staff. And today you can see the outcome when you interact with them, the result. So we are very proud of them. Next. That was the whole intention, dismantling West narratives of ancient art. That was the headline in Times of India, the way they reacted. And that was our intention. This is our narrative. We are going to look at the world through our window in vernacular media. Next. In Germany, the major German newspaper in Germany, in Greece, they covered full page coverage. The art newspaper, everywhere they talked about this exhibition. Next. The CSMVS Museum Education Program provides an opportunity for people, what I said, diverse countries and cultures to become partners. And then we end with the video, if you can spare 6 minutes, but don't miss it. And thank you so much.
The evolution of human society has been a remarkable journey. Cultures have traveled far and wide, the world has become smaller, more connected than ever. A curious mind is always looking for a missing piece or a forgotten connection. The ancient exhibit inspires us to embrace our past while helping us understand how culture has shaped the human experience. We welcome you to the exhibition, Ancient Sculptures, India, Egypt, Assyria, Greece, Rome.
Through this project, the Ancient World Project, what we are trying to do is bring evidences of history from all over the world for our audiences in India. And what we believe these objects can do is present a connected story of the ancient world to the publics today.
So we thought, why not we do a major exhibition, something different. People notice and people understand the relationship, connection, similarities and differences in different cultures. How different geographical locations exchanged ideas, how they worked together, how they invented and shared.
But what I think we're really celebrating is a multi-layered achievement. I don't want it to sound too grand, but it is an achievement because it's a first on many levels. It's the first time that a project has evolved, an East-West project, with India being asked to shape the narrative. What a great thing it is. No? You're spreading you're not just showing it to your own audiences. This is a complete reversal of the thinking we had my 30 years at the Metropolitan.
So with these sculptures from the ancient world, from the Indian sculpture from the CSMVS and other Indian collections, alongside material brought from Egypt, Assyria, Greece, and Rome, from collections in Europe, what we realized is there was an opportunity here to undertake a program in collaboration with Indian universities to think about, within an Indian context, what it might mean having these objects here. So it's not about teaching, I don't know, say classical Greece or ancient Egypt to Indian universities. It's about coming together and wondering, what can these Mediterranean sculptures prompt in terms of questions about the Indian sculptures, and what can Indian university and public understandings of these Indian sculptures, what kind of questions can they prompt us to think about with the Mediterranean sculptures?
This is a phenomenal experience because it gives an opportunity for us educators to actually see the sculptures from different parts of the world in Mumbai city, and moreover I am delighted that it gives an opportunity for our students and other youngsters and even the public who may not have the opportunity to visit the different museums from which we have these objects.
There were certain commonalities in thinking in the early history of thought and religion and beliefs, what is leading to these sculptures that have come from abroad and the sculptures that we have in this gallery. This particular gallery of ancient sculptures, is just put adjacent to the exhibition which is outside, and therefore the connection with India, or relationship rather, with India and those sculptures comes out very prominently.
So right in the middle of Egypt, Greece, and Rome, you have a great Indian statue of the god Vishnu. All around, you have images of Indian sculptures, so that you approach Greece, Rome, Egypt through the eyes of an Indian, because they are the people coming. That's completely new. I think this is the first real example of what you can call global co-curation, because the curators in India here, they know the kind of questions that their public asks. Now, those questions are very different from the kind of questions the public asks in Europe or North America.
Given the importance and the relevance of the Ancient World project, a version of ancient sculptures, India, Egypt, Assyria, Greece, and Rome, was curated for Museum on Wheels. Museum on Wheels is an outreach initiative that works with audiences that are far removed from the museum. And the idea behind this was to take this exhibition, its themes, to an audience that might not be able to access our museum easily. The CSMVS receives over 1 million visitors every year, half of which are children. We were thinking of ways in which we could reach out to more and more children across the city. And that's how the idea of the Trunk Museum project first took root. Each trunk is carefully curated on a particular theme. There are replica objects that have been created specially for children to hold. Each trunk is filled with educational resources, worksheets, presentations, and flashcards. And you should see the wonder in children's eyes when they lift open the lid of the trunk. This is a trunk full of ideas, histories, and endless possibilities.
We really want our young people to understand that their current identities are not just shaped by where they live, what language they speak, or for that matter, what faith they follow, but they are actually shaped by ages of world interaction, which are visible in the objects that we present in the gallery.
Human history needs to be seen in a broader perspective, where beyond the limits of geographical boundaries, we can celebrate, enjoy our shared heritage.